Romac Lumber and Supply. Buy where the builders buy.
Won CMA Entertainer of the Year. He's a movie star, television star, Grand Ole Opry member, and 2007 inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. But most of all, he made the best Whataburger commercial of all time that, as of yesterday, has 100,067 hits. And plus, he's Pam Tillis' dad. Ladies and gentlemen, Mel Tillis.
Thank you so much for your awfully time, and I do appreciate your applause. And I want to thank all of you for being here. My name is Mel Tillis. I'm Pam's daddy. And I guess that I'll start in the beginning. Folks were asking me, they said, well, Mel Tillis, where are you from? Well, originally from Tampa, Florida. Born in Tampa, Florida on North Morgan Street in an old house. All the houses look the same, 2700 I think it was, by Dr. Frazier, 1932. I'll be 80 years old this coming August. And the Lord's been good to me. I have been blessed in many, many ways. Anyway, we lived in and around Hillsborough County for about 10 years. And I started a school in Plant City, Florida at Woodrow Wilson Elementary School. And I had a teacher there named Miss Clark was her name. And I didn't know I stuttered until I started the school, because my daddy stuttered a little bit and my brother did too, and I thought that was the way we talked. So I started the school, and I found out, right away that I was a little bit different from the others, because they could talk and I couldn't, and they got to laughing at me, and I didn't know why. And I came home and I said, Mama, I said, do I stutter? And she said, yes, you do, son. And I said, but Mama, they laughed at me. And she said, well, son, if they're going to laugh at you, you give them something to laugh about. And I went back to school the next day, and I suppose that was my first day in show business. Because I found that I could ad-lib without stuttering. And sometime I would have to stay after school, for making people laugh and interrupting the class. But it was all worth it, because humor has been a part of my life. It's the best medicine in the world. And in those days, well, let me go on. I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, the war started, World War II started, and we moved down to Pahokee, Florida. And that's where I grew up. That's where I finished high school. And I lived there for 9 years, but I consider Pahokee my home, my hometown. And anyway, I entered all the talent shows. They had a little theater down there called the Prince Theater, and they had little talent shows, and I entered there. I won every one of them. and I said, man, this is it for me, I guess. And I was sociably accepted, all the parties and everything. I could dance too, boy. I could dance without stuttering. And I had a guitar. I could play and sing a little bit. So I was very popular. I played football. I went out for quarterback, and I did pretty good, but I couldn't I couldn't get the signals out, and they penalized us all the time, so I had to quit playing quarterback, and they put me a running back. And I finished high school in Pahokee. Went off I had a scholarship offer, a tryout at Florida State University, and I had one from North Carolina. And I went to Florida State and tried out, and I didn't make it. They had just converted over from a girls' school to a co-ed school. I said, I'll just go to Florida, and they had just converted over from all men to a co-ed. So I went up there, I tried out there, didn't make it, and I was there for 3 months. And I came home for Christmas, and the Korean War was going on. And I figured that I was going to get drafted, and I had some ROTC training at Gainesville, and I was in the National Guard in Barricade. And I knew I was going to get drafted because my grades wasn't all that good. I hung around with the football players, Jojo DiAgostino and J. Papa Hall and Rick Series and that bunch, you know, and Buford Long, Carol McDonald. Yeah, I hung out with those guys, and my daddy said, well, if you ain't going back to school, he said, you're going in the bakery shop. I said, Daddy, I don't want to be a baker. Daddy had this bakery at the time. I don't want to be a baker. He said, well, that's it. He said, I'm going to pay you $18 a week, and $10 of that is room and board. I said, Daddy, up until just a few seconds ago, it was free. He said, it ain't free no more. Now go across the street, post office, get the mail. I said, yes, sir. And I went across the street, and there was an Air Force recruiter guy out there, had on his blue outfit, and boy, looking. And Uncle Sam had a sign that we want you, and I thought that was so nice to be wanted. So I joined the Air Force. And on Christmas Day, Mom and Dad, they took me to the train station in West Palm Beach, put me on the train. I waved goodbye. And there was a young man from Bearglade, a black man or boy. He was about 18 or 19, my age. And I had his orders, because I had ROTC next. So I had his orders and my orders to get us to San Antonio, Texas. And he didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything for about 100 miles. And I got to wondering if he could talk. And I guess he was wondering if I could talk. Finally, he said something, and what he could say, I couldn't say. And what I could say, he couldn't say. He stuttered too. I said, hell, it's going to take us both to get there. But we finally made it to San Antonio, Texas, and we had our basics there, and it went, about 3 weeks into it, they called us all in, and they gave us these aptitude tests to find out what we were suited for. So I took my test, and I waited for my orders to come back to tell me, you know, that I was going to be a pilot or a clerk typist or whatever, and I waited. And all my buddies, there was 80 of us in that flight. Most of them were from Wisconsin. They called me Reb. And there's about 80 of us. And all of them had their orders but me. And I waited and I waited and I waited on mine. And finally got my orders. It said, report across a town, San Antonio, Texas, to Fort Sam Houston at the 4th Army Basic School. My daddy still laughing, I think about that in his grave. But anyway, I spent the 4 years in the Air Force as a baker. I served my country. I served cakes and cookies and pies and donuts. And they sent me to Okinawa, and I was over there for 2 years. And I had a lot of time off as a baker. I was on for 24 hours, and I was off 48 hours. And I joined a little band, a little country band, a band made up of GIs. Some was in the Army, some was in the Navy, and I was in the Air Force. And I learned how to play bar chords on the guitar from that experience. I learned how to run a band, and I really enjoyed that. And anyway, I got out of the old Air Force, and I went home. My folks had moved from Pahokee up to Plant City, Florida. And I got me a job. Oh, I looked around for jobs, and I tried and tried. I couldn't find anything, and I really stuttered, really, really bad in those days. And I went to, I saw an advertisement for someone to drive a candy truck in Plant City, Florida. And it was called Miller's Candy Company. And I went and I applied for that. And the guy, Mr. Miller, he said, he noticed that I couldn't talk. And he listened to me very patiently. And finally he said, I used to stutter. And I nodded. And he said, I got something here I want. He said, I've already filled the job that you're here for. And he said, but I got something here, I want you to read it. And he said, when you go to bed tonight, he said, you read this. And I'm sure all of you have heard it, so I'm not going to do it, but it's called the Serenity Prayer. Oh Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the thing. And I read that thing 10 times. You know, I said, well, I might as well read it. And I got up the next morning, and my attitude had changed. That right there made me realize, well, if they're going to accept me, they're going to accept me as I am. My whole life after that changed. And I wanted to sing, you know, 'cause I couldn't talk. So I wanted to sing, and I looked for jobs. And finally, my cousin got me a job with the Atlantic Coastline Railroad as a fireman. And I didn't know anything about mechanics, because I never had a car. My dad had never had a car. And I didn't know anything about that, so you know, I could bake a pie, but I couldn't. I couldn't work on a motor or nothing. But anyway, I was a fireman, and one of my duties as a fireman was to call out the signal that was up ahead of us. Well, hell, I got fired from that job. But I had my railroad pass. And I'd use my pass to go to Nashville. I'd get on the ACL, and I'd go to Jacksonville, and then I'd switch over to the L&N, the Louisville-Nashville Railroad. And when I went to Nashville in 56 it was, and it was all that was in Nashville at that time was the Grand Ole Opry and 3 little publishing companies. The Acuff Rose had been there for 14 years. That was Roy Acuff, and Western Rose had that company. And then Cedarwood Company was next. It was about 4 years old. And 3 publishing companies were about a year old. And I went up there and I auditioned, and they said, you're pretty